common criticism of abstract art is the often muttered, "My child could make this." This turn of phrase points out the ignorance of the critic more often than the lack of skill of the artist. When composing a realist piece of art, the artist must consider proportion, balance, contrast, color, and weight. All these aspects must work in harmony to create a visually pleasing work of art, each aspect applied with intention to evoke different meanings, emotions, or experiences when looking at a piece. Now consider the task of applying those same aspects to evoke those same emotions without the help of a tangible representation. How do you evoke anger without a reference to real life? Imagine trying to convey the peacefulness of a landscape without trees, sky, or earth. This is the world in which Stephanie Clayton creates her art, expertly weaving the abstract emotions and feelings into a canvas. So come with me as we go and meet Stephanie Clayton. All right, well, today we're interviewing Today we're interviewing Stephanie Clayton. She's a East Texas artist, and she can probably introduce herself better than I could, so I'll let her.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So I've been a professional artist since 1994, so what is that, 30 years now?
Let's see.
I'm not a math
99,
person, so.
I'm 25.
I think it's 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
Wow. So, yeah, I have been here in Tyler for, coming up on 7 years. Moved from Austin. I'm not from Austin, but I lived there for a while before I came here.
Yeah.
So that is how I got to Tyler, at least. But there's a whole lot of other places I've lived to get me here. So.
Yeah. So going off of that, let's go ahead and am I raising my voice or yours? Okay, I'm raising yours a little bit. So going off of that, let's take it back a little bit. So I guess we can start on where you live first, and then we'll also talk about how you got into art.
All right, sounds good. So I was born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. That's my hometown. And I grew up there, of course. And I've lived in a lot of places for various reasons. Kind of had a nomadic-ish lifestyle until we got here. And so then I ended up getting my Bachelor of Arts degree at Tulane. And after that, I started teaching and painting professionally. So that's how I got started, at least, as a professional artist.
So I guess what first drew you in? Like, were you one of those kids who was always doing art?
Yes, I was that kid.
Yeah.
I was also crafty. I did a lot of other things, but I was really drawn to drawing and painting.
Yeah.
And I kind of, I guess I was in my tweens, I'm thinking, and I thought I discovered this new mixed media technique. Of course, kids think they discover everything, right? When they first try something.
I've got a 100% original idea.
Yeah. And I was telling everybody about it, and they're like, "Oh, I've done that." I'm like, "What? No, I invented this." It was basically, I really enjoyed working with like colored pencil and pastel, mainly. I think it was pastel, crayon, things like that. And I really was drawn to paint. Not so much drawing, it's just what I had on hand a lot of times. So I would do the drawing on paper, and then I would add watercolor to it, and I realized, like, wow, this has created this luminosity. It's like everything just kind of popped and was extra colorful. So I just ran with it. I did that for a while. I didn't know really about how to use a medium. I was a kid, didn't really have a lot of art in school. There wasn't a lot of opportunities.
So where were you going to school at that time?
This was basically when I was in elementary school and high school. So it was in Alabama, in Birmingham. And I remember being 4 years old, backtracking a little bit here, and really being into art. Like just wanting to draw all the time. I was interested in paint, but it just didn't occur to me to like ask for watercolors. I just didn't know. So I was always drawing, and I realized I was kind of good at it. And I just was really intuitive about color.
Yeah.
Really knew about color, just, intuitively.
So I think that's a good time to take it back to what would you describe your style of art as?
So I would consider my work to be non-representational, abstract, always abstract. I currently, my newer bodies of work, there are a few elements in it that are sort of biomorphic. Mm-hmm. It's sort of evolved that way. I used to be a lot more geometric, and then I got a little bit more freeform, a little bit more loose, I guess, with shapes and lines. And so now there are biomorphic elements, but they're not really directly, I don't really derive them directly from nature. Mm-hmm. So, abstract. I would just call it abstract.
Yeah. So, because a lot of times, because I don't really come from necessarily an art background, and it sounds
creative,
like but abstract is kind of, I guess, almost downplayed. It's
right,
and I think a lot of times it's people don't really understand it,
right?
Because
right.
and there is a lot of bad, hotel lobby abstract.
Yes.
Kind of. But
so if you don't know and you don't have a background in it, or you haven't been exposed to it, it can be, I guess, for some people off-putting. Maybe I hadn't thought of it that way, but
for sure.
Some people I don't understand it, so therefore I'm not interested in.
Yeah. But like what you were talking about with color and stuff, looking through your artwork and stuff, like people don't understand. Like people are like, oh, a 4-year-old can do this. I'm like, yeah, a 4-year-old can't do the color. They don't understand balance. All these different
That's
things.
Very true.
So, were you always into the abstract, or did it start off somewhere else for you?
Good question. I haven't really thought about that. No, initially, how children start out doing what looks like abstract, but to them it's representing something like, oh, here's my cat, or this is me, and it doesn't look anything like, So I think once I was exposed to abstract art, I would say young adult years, maybe late teens probably, I was really drawn to it, very much so. Of course, I was drawn to all kinds of art, mainly painting, of course, but it just resonated with me. It resonated whenever I would go to, say, a museum, and of course at this point I was in art school. And I was just more drawn to the abstract work than the representational work where I could, that's a scene of this and that. So, and then even semi-abstract, I really like that too. And it was just something that always really resonated with me more than the traditional, like landscapes and so forth. Yeah.
So I guess this is sort of a perhaps ethereal and abstract question, but like what was it to you that resonated?
That you could look at a work of art that was abstract and sort of use your imagination. It felt like an open-ended conversation that I could have myself with the artwork. It wasn't so direct to me. The meaning or the topic, or whatever you want to call it, the meaning or topic behind the work or within the work, was usually left to one's interpretation. Yeah. At least in some ways, not always, but the works that I was more drawn to, or are still more drawn to, are very much like that. They're very color based, and I always loved color, so I liked seeing how artists could interpret something from within them that was not necessarily something they were interpreting from just life, from the image based.
Yeah. So it was almost more of a feeling, I guess. I'm trying to think of it.
Yes, I would say that. Yeah, that's actually really accurate. It's more about, for me, it was more about a feeling, and I don't want to undermine my attraction to some of the more represented or representational based artists, the ones that do that. Like, everyone loves Monet. I mean, how can you not? And I've been to a Monet. Actually, he got a little abstract towards the end of life. Pretty abstract. Yeah. Semi-abstract. But I was very drawn to him, and I think mainly because of the color. The luminosity has always just given me life. You know, any kind of sense of luminosity in artwork, I'm just automatically drawn to it, regardless of the style of art or the era it's from or the genre. I love that. So,
So we touched on it with I think with color, but what are the most important aspects of abstract?
Well, color's number one. I think a lot of us are like that. A lot of us are drawn to color. It just really, it's just so noticeable, right? Color. If you want to talk about, the elements of art, color is my number one, of course. And then after that, there's, how the composition is arranged. I don't necessarily prefer work that's very symmetrical. There are exceptions, of course, but I like things to be a little off. I love contrasts. I like contrast in meaning, and I like contrast in the visual.
Yeah.
So I like that, and I'm always drawn to. Color number one is. Yeah.
Number one.
I guess I'm kind of a colorist. I'm a color person. Here I am in black and white, but hey, it's easy, right?
No. So. I'm trying to think of a good, intelligent question to ask here. So I guess when you go to do a piece of art, right? How do you get inspired? Does inspiration strike you?
Ooh, I love this question. I'm inspired by, and we're talking currently, of course, because I've been through all sorts of ways to be inspired or things that inspire me, but I'm very inspired by meditation. I get these visions. I didn't realize that could somehow work into my art. I mean, my art is not about meditation, but I didn't realize that could play such a role in what I do. And once I started doing more regular meditation, I would have these visions, and they were abstract. Yeah. So, I mean, they were, there's light, there's color, and movement, and I could just really get inspired by that early on, like when I started meditating more regularly. So I thought, hey, I'm going to use this. So I will get my sketchbook out, or my watercolor sketchbook, and I'll try to interpret that the way I see it at the time after meditation. I try to do that. Otherwise, I found that if I wait or I can't just get that on paper, it's gone. Yeah. And so I try to do it right away. And then I use those quote images. They're not images, as I said, of something recognizable. They're more light and shape and movement, obviously color. And I will sort of use a lot of those to inform an actual work. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a study that I use, like a watercolor study. And then I'll do that on a big canvas. I'll have like maybe part of that, or maybe it's just a color scheme that I want to use from that meditation that I saw when I had the vision. So that's one of the ways I get inspired. But I go for walks. I love nature. I love being outside. I like to see even the color of buildings. Sometimes there'll be like a really bright door, and it just catches my attention. I used to do. I had a whole series many years ago on, I guess what I would now call portals, but they were doorways and windows, and this is when I lived in the Caribbean, and everything's very colorful. And I got really inspired by the colors there and the doorways and the openings, and I ended up doing an entire semi-abstract series. That's kind of when I was moving from representational to abstract, and I did it very slowly and without clear intention of like, I need to be abstract by this date. No, but it just sort of, I was in that that mindset where I knew my work was going in a more abstract direction. So that was very inspiring to me, just my environment.
Where do you think that feeling comes from of like, this, my work needs to move in this other direction now? I
don't know. I really don't have an answer. I love the question.
I asked that because like through my interviews, I read a book called The War of Art.
I've heard of that book.
Yeah, it's very good.
I've not read it.
I listened to it on the audiobook while I was working. I was like 3 hours long, but it's very interesting because like consistently, it's people will be like, it just comes to me, right? It's not something they thought of, or and
we don't know how these things happen.
And he uses the language, the like Greek language of like the muse, right?
Yes.
Muse coming to you,
yes.
and also sort of Christian symbolism of like, we are the furtherance of God's creation, right? It's almost like artists and creatives have to be open to that.
Yes.
Do things to get rid of the resistance that keeps us.
Yes.
And so I was wondering, like, do you ever find times where you're having a hard time getting inspired and you aren't happy with your work?
Oh, yes. That usually happens when I have taken a break for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And usually it's family obligations. And then when I go back to the studio, I feel almost like I'm starting from scratch in a way, in some ways. And I have to take a walk or do a meditation or do some studies, like some watercolor studies, to kind of get back into that. So that's part of your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
But go ahead and...
It's your podcast. So.
Just my podcast.
I'm just the guy who brings the
You're
equipment.
Just here. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, that is how I see it, because I don't want to make the podcast about me. I'm just a regular guy.
Yeah. Well, I don't really know how to answer that question fully. I really don't. But I love the question. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I do get stuck. I do, further to that point, I do get stuck. Artist block is real. It happens. It's like writer's block.
Yeah.
I know that's not what we were going for, but...
I mean, I think it is an offshoot of that.
Yeah, it is an offshoot, yeah. It's kind of a big one sometimes, I think, when we get artist block. We feel... I do want to address that a little bit more. We feel a little bit... it's very stifling, and it's kind of strange. Like, me? How can I have I'm an artist. How can I have this? I've been painting for 30 years. But it happens. And I have to interject this, too. This is kind of funny to me now that we're talking about it. But I occasionally teach intuitive art, which I have all these methods that I guide people in as far as opening creative channels and helping them get into a creative flow through certain guidance. And I don't want to call it teaching. I am an art teacher occasionally. But I try to practice what I preach. And sometimes I just don't. And then I forget that I have all these tools because I teach them to people. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's so hard to put myself into that mode. And so I have to, lately I've been having to really go into myself and just close everything off and try to get, quote, inspired. But, I think inspiration can be overrated. I will say that. I think if you wait till you're, and I know this is a classic thing to say, but if you wait till you're inspired to create, I mean, that's not really a good way to continue with your work, I think. I mean, think about it. If you have a job, because art is my job, and you have a job and you don't show up because you don't feel inspired.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it like that, it feels a little ridiculous, and I'm telling this to myself. So I have to just do the work. You just got to get in there and make a mark, and then another mark, another one. But anyway, I had to throw that in there because I've been dealing with a little bit of that recently.
Well, speaking of that book, he talks about that. He calls it turning pro.
Oh,
it's like
okay. I've got to get my hands on that book.
Yeah, when you're a professional, that's what you do. You show up.
You just show up. You show up, and if you make mistakes or whatever you consider mistakes, they're not really mistakes. They're learning tools.
Yeah.
We have to do that to move forward. And I am the worst person. I can preach that all day, but I have to remember, it's really humbling. It really is.
Yeah.
As an artist to go back in there and say, you know what? I'm not even paying attention to what I've taught other people. Why am I having this stumbling block? You just forget, so.
Yeah. So I want to go back because we've mentioned it a couple of times, but you're an art teacher, or at least you say most of the time. Sometimes you are.
Yes.
So when did you start teaching, and how was that journey for you?
Okay. I started teaching a few months after I graduated with my art and art history degree. And I taught homeschool students because I knew a lot of homeschoolers, and I knew a lot of their parents, of course. This was in the New Orleans area, and I don't know. I felt drawn to teach. I really enjoy being in academia. I think part of it was I missed college, which is a little crazy, and I missed being in that learning environment. So I wanted to somehow continue that and pass that on to others, if that makes sense. Pass along what I knew. To others, and also still be an active part of the learning process through others, if that makes sense. And of course through myself, because I learn from my students. I learn a lot from my students. So that was 1994. And then we had a big flood, and I had to close my studio. And fast forward a few years, we ended up getting the place back in order. It was in my home, my studio, and I never got back into fully teaching homeschool students during that time frame because of the flood, and then we left the country and moved to the Caribbean, a little tiny island. And I did some private lessons there for a while. I had other work going on. I was a chef on charter boats. Okay. So I was a yacht chef for 5 years. And then I ran across an opportunity at one of the private schools on the island, and I applied as the art teacher, and I got the job, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? How did this happen? So, because I'd never taught in a classroom except the homeschool students.
So I kind of want to stop you there because you hear something, I want to go down another rabbit hole. I
have a lot of little
segues but you mentioned being a chef on a yacht. Yes. So did you do like culinary school, or was it just? I
was self-taught. A lot of us were at the time. There was a need.
Yeah.
And I had friends that did it some were professionally taught chefs, some were not, some had been in the restaurant business. So I was encouraged to do it, and I'd already worked on day sail charter boats, like serving rum punch and things like that,
all the boat things.
Serving all the boat things. And I thought, hey, why not? I'll try. I'm creative. And so I found that I loved it. I loved cooking for others. So that was a really interesting creative outlet for me that I just fell into almost quite literally. I was resistant at first, and a really close friend of mine said, come on, Steph, you can do it. Just do it. It's not hard. I'm like, oh, it was hard, but not the cooking part. It was hard in other ways, but it was just a wonderful experience. And when I was not on charter, I painted. I had a little studio set up in our place, and I painted, and then people started to notice my work, and I was doing shows on the island. I had sales. People were buying my work. I had commissions, which was interesting. I did murals. I basically was doing some graphic design, which I had no clue about. People were coming to me, oh, please, I need you to design my logo, design my sign.
So you were just
and I'm
everything
like,
on
I'm
the
a fine
island.
artist. I don't do commercial art. I don't know how. I'm not trained in that, and it wasn't my vibe, but I did it. It was actually fun for me to do that, kind of step outside my comfort zone and do that. So, and then after I left the charter yacht career, I guess, I did that for 5 years, and then I got that job teaching at the school where I worked. I did that for many years.
So I guess what brought you back from the island where you did everything to the mainland?
Oh, how long do you have, Isaac? Okay. It was time to leave. Basically, I felt very trapped, and I felt like I had done all the things that I wanted to do there, and over and over. And I was bored, basically. And there were a lot of other reasons, but that's a big reason as far as me and my art career. I did feel a little stifled. I found myself going to Miami more and more often to take part in the art scene there, which I did, and it was really fun. But I was just beginning to I get bored easily. And a lot of it was just
really
sheer boredom and frustration.
That's not really a trade amongst artists. You know?
Yeah, it was a hard time. Leaving was, the decision to leave was one of the hardest decisions of my life, personally. Mm-hmm. And of course I was married, and my husband was a little behind me on the decision to leave. It took him a while longer to agree to leave. And we did, and of course then we got to the States, and I had that, what have I done again? What's happening? But yeah, it was really just, I wanted to go further with my art career, and I felt as though I was spinning my wheels there. Mm. I felt like I was trapped in a gilded cage. That's how I like to describe it. And it was all mental, of course. But it's a 17-mile long rock. Yeah. I mean, there's not a whole lot of, it was wonderful though, and I miss it every day. Yeah. Every day of my life. I miss it. I don't miss the difficulty of, say, getting art materials or just getting my work appreciated. Although I did have a lot of success there. But then, what was it? We had that big economy crash, or the stock market. Was it 2008?
2008
or,
stock market crash.
Yes, and that really put a dent in my progress there as like selling my work. Yeah, everything just kind of halted.
So, I guess from there, how do you end up in East Texas?
Yeah, family reasons. We moved around a lot we left the British Virgin Islands in 2010, and we had several moves just for work reasons. Mm-hmm. And then we were settled in Austin, very content there. It was a great place to live, of course. And I had an art job. I was teaching and doing other things at the Doherty Art Center in Austin, which was a lot of fun. And my in-laws came here from Brazil and decided Tyler was the place to be. So in order to be near them, we left Austin kind of abruptly. We sold our house and came to Tyler.
So what's the move to Tyler like?
I had culture shock. I'm not going to lie. I did. Yeah. I really did. Because I had really gotten ensconced pretty well in Austin, and I was a little bit somewhat occasionally disillusioned by the art, quote, scene in Austin. But I was also at the same time very into it and hoping it would grow and become something greater. And so, yeah, I was really ensconced in Austin. We thought we were going to be there long term.
Yeah.
It was only 5 years.
So I guess, what was it about Austin? You said you were kind of disillusioned with the art scene?
Yeah, I don't know. I really moved there thinking it was more of an art city, like a smaller Houston, or because Houston is, to me, it's very much an art city, especially modern and contemporary art. And so I thought, Austin will have a lot more opportunities, and there weren't that many galleries. I was really surprised. The art that I was more involved in was more kind of grassroots. There was a lot of work I saw that was very like graffiti art was really popular there, and which I love. I love going to look at graffiti. I think it's really fun. And then murals, of course, I like murals because I did murals. So I enjoy those a lot. But I guess I felt like it was smaller and less vibrant and less serious. I guess I thought it was going to be a more serious art city, and it was more like we're having fun and playing around, which totally makes sense for Austin. I just didn't realize until I got there. So that was interesting to me. Yeah. But I did love living there. It was a wonderful experience for me as an artist to be there.
So I figure, moving here, you kind of got in the ground floor of the Tyler art scene.
Yeah.
So how have you seen Tyler's art scene? Is it kind of coming up?
Yeah. So, again, I've been here since we moved here the end of 2017, early 18. And I have seen a lot of growth, a lot of progress in the art scene, quote unquote. I hate to say that term. I don't know what else to call it. Art scene, art community.
Yeah.
And it's very encouraging. It really is. I wish we could keep more, people graduate college and then they leave and don't come back. And I really wish, especially artists, I see a lot of that where they go and move to bigger cities. And I get it. I would have done that if I'd had the opportunity. If my life had been kind of that way, if I had that trajectory from early on. But so I get it, but I go into that with a lot of curiosity, like what's going to happen in the next 5 years here in Tyler. Is it going to continue growing? And if the economy improves, I think it will just, I don't want to say take off, but I think it'll speed up, right?
Yeah.
I think we'll get more. I'd love to see some contemporary art galleries open here. Who knows?
We'll a lot of roses here.
Yes. I love roses. Roses are great. Yes.
I'm trying to think if there's anything I could add. I guess I really do, because I've been coming here since I was a little kid, visit my grandparents,
Oh, that's how you, okay.
Yeah, and so...
Interesting. So family ties.
Yeah, yes. It was pretty dead in Tyler, though.
Really?
And,
when was this?
Probably even till... Trying to think. Probably 10 years ago.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Yeah, downtown really didn't have much.
Wow.
And
okay.
It's...
I guess I can see that, but I'm trying to picture it.
Yeah,
I can understand it.
Like you drive through and there was kind of like the zoo.
Oh, right. It's a really good zoo, I have to say.
It is.
It really is.
Excellent zoo.
Yes, it is. It's
but it just seems like, which it may just be like I'm paying attention to it more, getting involved, interviewing people and stuff.
Well, that could be part of it.
But it really seems like everything's kind of started in the last 5 years, though. Like meeting people.
That's great.
And so I really do hope, because I've met a lot of artists. There's been a lot of work promoting local art around Tyler and stuff. And so I'd love to see that grow.
Yes, me too. I just love how the city has really tried to nurture to just grow the art community here in ways that are very nurturing. And I'm not saying it's super nurturing here for artists, whatever that means. We don't have, I would love to have an art center here. There was a really good one. I lived in Corpus Christi and before Austin, and the art center there is just fantastic. I was involved there with the art center. I taught there and I exhibited there, and it was a really wonderful place because Corpus isn't, it's kind of a it's kind of an odd it's an odd place. It really is. It doesn't really grow. In fact, it kind of shrinks. I've lived there twice, so I've seen this.
Yeah.
But the art center was that was my little slice of heaven there. I mean, I didn't like living there. I wasn't very happy there in other ways, but that art center it was wonderful. And then of course, Austin has the Doherty Art Center, which is a city run. If you work at the Doherty, you work for the city of Austin. That's what I did. But I would love to see Tyler have like maybe art spaces where artists can rent the space and with other artists and have events and kind of like not necessarily a co-op, but something like that. Art, like a city-run or partially city-run art center. I think we need that, and I think it would thrive here. I really do. Any of those things would.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that because as a kid, I would go to Mondo Drumming, which was on Arts Fifth Avenue in Fort Worth. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't.
So it was
not yet.
But like my drum instructor, he was a guy. He was when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
Him and Stevie Ray Vaughan were in a band together. And then, like,
wait, who?
Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't know that until afterwards.
I went to see him.
In
Birmingham.
Yeah, but I mean, he's been to like Brazil, South America, learned all these things. But they had this sort of small community center. It was it's funny because like it's completely changed. But like back in the day, it was by the hospital's rundown neighborhood. But rent was cheap,
Yeah.
But they do.
I get it.
They'd have art classes, dance, all that different
we need
stuff.
something like that here.
Yeah,
we
really I was thinking about that because I live down in Rust. There's really not much going on.
Okay.
And I was like, man, if somebody could open something like that there.
Yeah, somebody with a vision that can get the funding somehow, whatever that's through, and just have.
Which Nacogdoches has a very similar thing. I think it was called Avenue Speak. I don't know for sure, but my friend Casey Muse, he's here. He does drumming and stuff.
Yeah.
But he did very much the same thing in Nacogdoches. But
that is cool.
And I've always thought that like Tyler needs that. A lot of these, Rusk or Jacksonville needs something like that. Especially just because, like, it helps inspire, gets kids started.
It does. It absolutely does. And it's so good for the community and obviously good for the artists, but very good as a whole. It's so important. I'm such an advocate for that. I would love to get involved in something like that on some level.
Yeah.
I could rent the space out and, have my classes there and not in my home studio.
Now that I've met like 40% of all the artists in Tyler, I'll just get us all together. So I guess I've probably run out of good questions. So if there's anywhere you want to take the podcast, talk about something, we can go there.
Let's see, Isaac. So I've talked about my work. I do want to say that to get back to what inspires me, there's other things besides meditation, but I guess currently I have to put this in here. I am still greatly inspired by the Caribbean Sea. Mm-hmm. It was very hard to leave. That was my muse. Well, the whole environment there was my muse. The rocks and the water and the sand and the trees and the flowers and the buildings, even the colors. That was my muse for 12 years. So the sea it's just in my soul. I'm a water girl. I'm a water sign. I'm a Pisces. Just that turquoise water. And so that is still almost every painting that I do has turquoise in it. I cannot get that out of my psyche. And so that inspires me to this day, the Caribbean Sea, the color.
Yeah.
I know there's other oceans, other bodies of water that are turquoise, but there's something about just my experience in the Caribbean, just that feeling of looking at that water and it's lit from within. Its luminosity is a big thing for me. Obviously, I keep saying that. But the color turquoise inspires me, which is the color of the sea there, like I said.
Yeah.
So that is a huge inspiration. And I've been back since 2010 here in the States, and that's not going away. I think it's permanent. So, yeah.
So once that gets in your psyche, it stays?
It's there, yeah. And as someone who gets bored easily, like I mentioned earlier, I'm really surprised that I'm still greatly inspired by the color of that water. There's nothing like it, absolutely nothing on this planet like the Caribbean Sea. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down for this interview. I've had a lot of fun.
For having me. It's been fun.
We did 40 minutes. And
really?
It went by super fast.
That's great.
But thank you so much.
Thank you.
And are there social medias?
Yes. So people can find me. My website is stephanieclayton.com. And I need to update that soon, but it's fairly updated, but I need to do some more tweaking there. And then my Instagram is Stephanie Clayton Art.
Okay.
At Stephanie Clayton Art. And let's see. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not active right now. I had some social media technical issues. So I'm not really posting there very any right now, but I am on there. I'm on there as Stephanie Hoff Clayton.
All right. So are you going to get back to teaching anytime soon? Or?
I would like to. It's been a little difficult here to keep that going. Mm-hmm. I think that Tyler is a hard sell for non-academic art classes currently. It has been for me. I've tried. I tried since I got here, off and on, to teach or to have classes, and the ones that I had were very satisfying. Yeah. So that will inspire me to perhaps continue with that at a later date when the time is right.
So, and I'm just because you said that now tonight, what do you think? Like, it's hard for non-academic.
Well, my friend Lisa and I have just racked our brains back a couple of years ago trying to figure out how can we make these classes grow, because I was holding intuitive art classes at my friend Lisa's art studio here, and I won't put her last name in there, but if you know her, you know her. That was a lot of fun, and just there was a lot going on, I think, with people, and again, it was a couple of years ago, and so the classes were not consistently growing like we had hoped, and so we had other things going on in our lives. We made a decision to just step away from it. Yeah. And so I feel like maybe the time wasn't exactly aligned.
I was just wondering, because you were saying specifically like non-academic. So do you mean like just something
extracurricular?
Outside of,
yeah, that's what I mean, like not college-based classes. So I feel like I definitely have not given up on that.
Yeah. It is kind of weird. It seems like a lot of people, they don't seem to value things they don't think they can turn into a career. Yeah. I think that's common everywhere, honestly. Yeah. And we're such a growing city right now. I think, I don't know. I think the time will come. I don't really have a good answer as to why. Because I had a lot of success teaching those types of classes in Austin. But Austin is a whole different vibe. And Austin is very... it's a very creative place, and it's known as a creative place. Yeah. And so, therefore, it attracts a lot of people who want to learn things outside the box, so to speak. Yeah. And, I mean, I can teach traditional painting all day, but I really wanted to offer something a little bit different to the community. Yeah. So
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I've given up, and maybe I'll go back to teaching
For sure.
some
Well,
traditional.
everybody start bugging Stephanie, and
Yeah,
then
I'm here.
and then we can start it up.
I can do private lessons too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you
been
very
a
much,
pleasure.
Isaac. It has been a pleasure.
Red roses too. I see them bloom.
Awesome. Kind of like that video you just watched, huh?
I think to myself,
Go ahead and like and subscribe and share it. I mean,
what a
if you liked it. If you didn't like it, it's a free country at the end of the day.
I see skies,
So. Oh, you did? Oh, thanks. Thanks. Yeah.
clouds of white,
Yeah. Cool.
the bright sunny day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky. They're also on the faces of the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you.